All right, class, we are on to the second part of the acoustics kind of mini lesson here. What you see in front of you is what's called an audiogram. This graph right here is basically what I use on a daily basis to diagnose people's hearing loss. Now, this is on page 171 in the textbook if you wanted to follow along. From left to right here on the x-axis, we have frequency as measured in hertz. So 250 hertz is 250 cycles per second. Once again, something vibrating from here to here to here to here 250 times in 1 second. Next we have 500 hertz, then 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, and 8,000 hertz. Now, I noted in the last video that we as human beings have within our cochleas, our organs of hearing, the ability to hear sounds that vibrate as slow as 20 hertz, 20 cycles per second, up to sounds that vibrate as fast as 20,000 cycles per second. 20,000 of this to this to this to this in 1 second. You can imagine that's very, very high pitched. Now, there are sounds that occur above 20,000 hertz. We just don't have the ability to perceive them. We don't have the flesh and blood within our cochlea to pick them up. Dolphins, bats, and other mammals like that rely on echolocation. Even dogs can hear at frequencies much higher than this because they have the flesh and blood ability to do so. Nevertheless, we as human beings only care in the field of audiology really measuring these 6 frequencies: 250, 500, 1, 2, 4, and 8,000 hertz. Now, that begs the question, 20 to 20,000 hertz, why don't we measure that entire range? Why don't we as audiologists care about the entire ability of a human being to hear? The main reason is because these frequencies are necessary for the perception of all of the speech sounds within any language in question within the world. You can see this little sort of amber kind of yellowish area. That's what's called the speech banana. That's not a name that I really love, but I've never heard kind of a better name for it. But you'll notice, and it's not an IPA, but you'll notice all these letters here. That's the energy necessary for being able to pick up these phonemes. In other words, d, b, n, and those 5 phonemes, the majority of their energy occurs somewhere between 250 and 500 hertz. And furthermore, along this axis, require the abilities to hear sounds at around 40 to 50 decibels. Frequency measured on the x-axis, measured in hertz. Intensity on the y-axis, measured in decibels, going from soft to loud sounds. Low-pitched sounds, high-pitched sounds, soft sounds, loud sounds. Low-pitched soft sound here, high-pitched soft sound there. Low-pitched loud sounds are there, high-pitched loud sounds are there. Some phonemes, such as f, s, and th, not only require decibel levels that are lower because they're softer sounds, but they're also higher frequency sounds. Now, you don't have to be a musician to be able to hear that f and s and th and t and k and p require high pitch abilities to hear. Sounds like d, o, u, e, ah, n. Those require low frequency abilities to hear. An important designation, sort of delineation, is right here at 1,000 hertz. This cuts the audiogram in half. You will probably notice, as speech-language pathologists to be, that the phonemes to the left of 1,000 hertz, for the most part, are voiced sounds. Sounds that require vocal fold adduction and abduction in order to be produced. Sounds to the right of 1000 hertz are, for the most part, unvoiced sounds. Sounds that basically give speech its clarity. To the left of 1000 hertz are phonemes that give speech its audibility. Voicing gives speech its loudness, its volume. The unvoiced sounds give speech its understanding, its clarity, its ability to be understood. So sounds that are loud are here. Sounds that are clear are here. Most people have hearing right around here. If we were to measure somebody's hearing, their ability to hear, if your hearing was normal, all of your results would be here, meaning that you can hear everything below that line that I just drew. Thus is the sort of essence of audiology. I am trying to find at what decibel level each of these frequencies a person hears before a sound is just audible. I am measuring a person's right ear and left ear and putting marks on a graph on this audiogram to indicate what the person's hearing thresholds are. If a person's hearing thresholds are all here at the top of the graph, they can hear all of the sounds below this, and their hearing would be said to be normal. Somebody's hearing thresholds that were all the way down here would be said to have a profound hearing loss, meaning that I had to make sounds be 110 decibels, 110 units of loudness before the person barely heard it. It's important to note that for somebody with normal hearing, a 1000 hertz tone at 15 decibels sounds as loud as a 115 decibel tone at 1000 hertz to somebody with a profound hearing loss. They both will sound like the proverbial pin drop. So acoustically, one is very soft and one is very loud, but psychoacoustically, those two tones sound the same to the two different patients that I'm describing. The designation right here at 1000 hertz is important to note too, because most people with an age-related hearing loss are hearing just fine here and then fall off here, meaning they can hear voiced phonemes, but they can't hear the unvoiced ones. Speech ends up sounding loud to the patient, but not clear. It's almost as if speech is sort of like a radio dial that's not quite tuned in. It's a little off. You can hear the announcer, but you can't understand what he or she is saying. Age-related hearing losses are very confounding that way. They're very maddening for the people that have them. They will run around and say, it's not me, it's everybody else. I can hear just fine. My patients that have this sort of configuration of hearing loss, I have to remind them that yes, you can hear just fine. Your problem isn't an issue of hearing. Your problem is an issue of understanding. You have a severe high frequency hearing loss, meaning that you can hear low pitches within normal limits, but you can't hear the high pitches. Speech ends up sounding very kind of vowely. Speech sounds loud, but it doesn't sound clear. You can hear speech, but you can't understand it. Speech ends up sounding like Charlie Brown's teacher. You can hear the wah 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 when Charlie Brown's teacher was talking, meaning that you could hear the sort of vowel sounds, the voiced sounds of that speech. But there was no voice. There were no voiceless sounds there. It was just a trumpet with a mute, but it was basically just volume, no clarity. People with age-related hearing loss hear the world a little bit like Charlie Brown's teacher, where they can hear the wah 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 wah, but they can't understand what's being said. Because that hearing loss happens so gradually over a long period of time, it can end up seeming like it's the other person's fault. It can seem like the rest of the world has changed. My ears are just fine. Now, I'm going to continue this on to anatomy and physiology, and then we'll be done for the day.